And then at the same time, before that, by the way, the city, Brian Doucette, city manager at the time, and Randy Locker came to us because they wanted to put Los Ranchos next door. And again, they needed our permission. And without our permission, there would probably not ever be a restaurant in that area because restaurants need alcohol. And so we made a three-party agreement between the synagogue, Los Ranchos, and the city that there would be no outside alcohol or entertainment or music entertainment. So.
And I attended a
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Megan, could we have a roll call, please?
Jeff Arnold.
Here.
Mary Hasley. Here. Wendy Onuki.
Here.
Joe Reeser.
Here.
George Sleeper.
Here.
Letitia Wilkins.
Here.
Annie Brown.
Here, thank you. And next we have an update by Van Buren County Commissioner Gail Patterson Gladney.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
I'm going to lean my extra aid over here. Okay. I wanted to let you know that I attended the 2024 Michigan Counties Legislative Conference in Lansing. And I attended along with John Fall, our county administrator, and 4 other county commissioners. We had a chance to listen to a panel discussion with 2 of the Michigan senators, Eric Nesbitt and Jeremy Moss, and 2 of the Michigan representatives, John Fitzgerald and Graham Filler. They discussed the proper revenue sharing trust fund reform effort that's taking place. And during the conference, I think a lot of the public don't realize that conferences are so important. But if any of you have been to the MML, Michigan Municipal League conferences, you know you learn a lot, You get to talk to other city council members, other mayors, and you can bring back fresh perspectives. We got to do the same. One of the things, too, that we did is we listened to a speaker who was very good, and that was Dr. Peter Cressy. He gave a very good speech about Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Churchill. And he talked about a strategic approach to leading in the times of crisis and change. And during his address, he emphasized working together across the political aisle and with others who may not have share your same opinions. And I thought he did an excellent job. I'd like to share a quote that he gave. "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." And so in difficult times, keep working, keep struggling. One of the things that happened too at the conference is I received an award. I have to show it to you because my husband doesn't want to see any more awards. It's from the Michigan Association of Counties in recognition of earning the status of Certified County Commissioner. And so all 5 of us from the Van Buren County received that, along with other commissioners across the county. Across the state, as you know, there are 83 counties, and quite a few commissioners attended. So if you have any questions about the conference, please see me or come in, or call or email. One of the things that I found out with conferences, I don't know if this happens with you, that now they decide to have dinner on your own. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's one way of saving money. So, but usually we get together with other county commissioners. I wanted to mention that the Van Buren County Veterans Social continues, and this month it's May 30th. You can go on our county website and see the updated flyer. The veterans have stated that it's very important to them to be able to meet with other veterans who have gone through the same experience. They know some key terms that ignite memories from when they were in basic training. I know my husband went to a veterans program, and they talked about the day room, which I had no idea what a day room is, but all the veterans knew what that was, and they were able to, laugh about some of the jokes that were made. So that's one of the things that I wanted to share with you. Also, during this month, it's National Treatment Court Month. And I'm going to read to you from Rachel Lindley what she has sent to me to share. During National Treatment Court Month, which takes place in May, we celebrate the specialty courts programs offered by the 36th Circuit, that's in Paw Paw, and the 7th District Court, which is here in South Haven, for individuals in the legal system dealing with substance use, mental health, or co-occurring diagnosis. Van Buren County operates 4 specialty courts: Adult Drug Court, men's and women's, Sobriety Court, Mental Health Court, and Family Reunification Court. She said that she would be remiss if she failed to mention our participation with Allegan and Ottawa County for the Regional Veterans Treatment Court. And these programs cater to about 200 participants annually. Each participant involved in these initiatives is provided with a tailored evidence-based treatment plan and collaborates with the presiding judge, court personnel, legal representatives, treatment specialists, law enforcement, peer support, DHHS, Department of Health and Human Services, and probation officers to ensure consistent support, treatment, and accountability. And those who have successfully graduated from the program secure employment, improve their education, meet financial obligations, and undergo comprehensive counseling and testing. And so consequently, the participants exit the criminal legal system to lead stable lives characterized by sustained recovery, restored hope, and fresh perspectives and opportunities. Concerning the courts, I don't know if you know that Judge DeStefano has stepped down, and now we have a new judge, Susan Metzger, who was appointed by Governor Whitmer. She is our second female judge in the county's history. June is Men's Health Month, and I wanted to make sure everybody knows about Men's Health Month. I've been seeing over my life many men who do not like to go to the doctors. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but I'm going to encourage the men, and if you have sons, husbands, to go to make regular appointments for checkups. And some of the statistics for men's health needs to be changed. On the average, men live 5 years less than their female counterparts. Men have a higher death rate for most of the leading causes of death, including cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and suicide. And 1 in 2 men will develop cancer in their lifetime. Men make half as many physician visits for prevention as women. So I hope you schedule your checkup today. I'm going to give this to your city manager. And I will also give her some more information from American Cancer Society in case she wants to put that in her reports. As many of you know, mental health has been one of the issues that I've been talking about for over 8 years. And this month again, well, next month, we're going to have the Question, Persuade, Refer teaching again, and that's free. And it's a hour-and-a-half question, refer, persuade, refer training, and you do not have to be a mental health professional to attend the training. It's important in that you get to possibly be able to pick up on situations that could be where you could step in and help someone so that they wouldn't choose the alternative for suicide. And June 10th from 12 to 1:30, there's a virtual class, and here's a QR code for that. And as you know, veterans are dear to my heart, and so there's a Veteran and Family Resource Fair coming up Saturday, June 8th at the American Legion Post here in South Haven from 10 to 2. It's free food, music, family-friendly games, multiple prizes, including $1,000 in home improvements. And you can also bring your, if you're a veteran, your DD-214, and they mentioned the last year's tax statement. I'm not sure exactly why they need that, except for certain services that the veteran might be able to sign up for. And I will give that to the city manager also. In case some of you are not familiar with some of the classes the Michigan State University Extensions offer, I'm going to give this to your city manager also. One of the next classes is going to be Wednesday, May 29th, 10 to 3, and it's about building a foundation for attainable housing. Some of the classes are free, some of them are $10 or $20. So I will give these are specifically for you or other officials. Another one is Governing Essentials Series, and then the 2024 Master Citizen Planner webinar series. And some of you might have attended in April, but I'm giving you these for those who would like to attend. And I think that's all I have right now, unless you have some questions. No?
Any questions?
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your award.
Congratulations.
Yes. Next, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Before we approve the agenda,
Go ahead.
I wanted to make a motion to amend the agenda by adding short-term rental and the next steps we're going to take to the agenda.
Okay,
Where,
so we'll add a discussion about short-term rentals.
I support the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
where are we
Yes.
going to add it on the agenda?
Okay, we will add it.
Can I suggest 13A?
Okay.
What?
13A?
Great. We're adding it to 13A, discussion on short-term rentals. All in favor, say yes.
Can we Yes. discuss first?
Pardon me?
So I don't think it's appropriate to add something like that to the agenda. For one thing, anyone who wanted to know what we were going to talk about tonight looked at the agenda and saw there was nothing on short-term rentals. And had they known that, they might have come and wanted to participate. Just us adding it is not, I think, good transparency, I think, to the public, because we just add stuff to the agenda, and I don't think that's appropriate. So I'm against making any changes to the agenda for something like that.
I agree, because it wasn't obviously on the agenda, and people have no way of knowing that we were going to talk about it. Good point. Any other discussion? Mary?
So I'm on the committee with George and Jeff, and I believe that this would be not a substantive discussion, but to identify what we would, trying to find the next steps. So it's more like an update, it's not substantive. I myself am wondering the status of short-term rental amendments that are coming. It's really separate and distinct from the priorities, which are focused on fiscal year 24-25. We have yet to finish the priority for fiscal year 23-24. We're quickly approaching that terminus, and it would be nice to know what we can expect in the next few meetings. So it's really doesn't lack due process. It's to help identify or get the discussion started of what we should expect in the next 6 weeks or so.
I would add, I'm also opposed to changing the agenda on the fly. When we added a beach safety investigation, or now as short-term rentals, and when we had the Michigan Municipal Lead training, they told us this is not the best practices because it leaves the staff flat-footed. Kate, we can ask for an update, but she didn't prepare to speak about an update. And so she probably did all her homework about the things on the agenda. And while I'm sure she can speak knowledgeably about anything we ask, she was not prepared for that, and neither is the rest of her staff, and it's just not good practice.
Joe?
I don't think we're going to try to, if we discuss it, make any decisions, and I'm not speaking for Letitia, but I do think overwhelmingly, I've been inundated, and I think some other council people have been inundated with residents wondering, are we doing anything? We're in the middle of a moratorium, and it feels like to many people that nothing is happening. So to have a brief discussion on the direction we're going at least gives the residents some idea. To George's point, I don't want to surprise anybody. I don't want any decisions made, but at least let them know that we have some plans. And even if that meant the city manager bringing us up to date, because she and I had a discussion today, and it helped talking about it, because I didn't know some of the things going on. So I think it can only help. And bottom line is, we're here for the residents, and they're asking overwhelmingly, as I hear it.
Well, I can speak for myself. The reason is because just like what Mr. Reeser is saying, there's so many residents who are concerned, who are asking, and maybe they're not here, but we're not making a decision, we're just having a discussion. And it's not about legalities or anything like that, but the people deserve to know. I'm getting emails constantly, I'm getting texts constantly, and I think just a simple discussion is not going to hurt. And I understand what George is saying. I'm not trying to throw any surprises or anything, but this is not a surprise. Everyone knows that short-term rental is a big issue and a big concern for the residents of South Haven.
Just to the council, remember when you want to add something to the agenda like this, at least please let the mayor and the city manager know in advance. Any more discussion? Do we have a second on this?
Mary
I did.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
we have a
roll call,
second to
please.
amend. Yep. Arnold
No.
and Hasley,
Yes.
Onuki,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Sleeper,
No,
Wilkins,
Yes.
and Brown.
No.
That is 4-3, motion carries.
Thank you.
I'd make a motion then to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Are we all set now? Okay, moving on. Public comment for items on the agenda, excluding items scheduled for public hearing. And you have up to 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Remy Rubin, 622 North Shore Drive, but I'm here as president of the First Hebrew Congregation, a house of worship at 249 Broadway. And we are very concerned and opposed to extending the social district beyond where it is. Just to give you a little bit of a background, and some others will talk also. Back around maybe 2010, 12, we couldn't figure it out. Joe had a small taco bar, a restaurant across the street. They came to us for approval for a liquor license because we're within 500 feet. We thought we would be good neighbors and allow him to have his liquor license. He said he was only gonna, do inside service. Well, unfortunately, it expanded initially to a biker bar for a while, which caused a lot of noise and racket while we're having our services. We have Friday night services, we have Saturday services, and of course, if you do extend the time of the social district hour, it may even interfere with our high holy holidays, which will come in September and October, depending on the lunar calendar. And as a result, and those are nice times of the year, and there are a lot of people in town. Well, Joe's Bar expanded from a biker bar with some iterations of several new ownerships. It's become an outdoor patio. It's become loud music. I know Kate Hosier and Chief Thompson are very well aware of our noise complaints. I know that they were even issued, the social house has been issued some citations, I believe, for extensive noise that interfered with our services. And then at the same time, before that, by the way, the city, Brian Dissett, city manager at the time, and Randy Locker came to us because they wanted to put Los Ranchos next door. And again, they needed our permission. And without our permission, there would probably not ever be a restaurant in that area, because restaurants need alcohol. And so we made a three-party agreement between the synagogue, Los Ranchos and the city that there would be no outside alcohol or entertainment or music entertainment. So we are asking that the social district remains where it is. We see no need for it to come encroaching on Broadway. And I've seen some of the proposed plans, and we are really smack dab in the middle. And even though in the one plan, even if people could only walk on the west side of the street, you will have people encroaching to the east side. They'll walk to their cars, they'll have their drinks, and so it causes a lot of disturbances to our services. And we would just expect the city to respect our
1 minute.
services, that we are in the middle of the social district, and we've been there since 1929. So we're getting close to our 100th anniversary, which we hope to celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Brian Spalding, President of the Lighthouse Point Condominiums. There's 8 condominium units in the building on Kalamazoo Street on the west side. And we're not opposed to the social district. We're just opposed to having it on our side of the street. There are no bars on that side of the street or restaurants. As far as option number 1 or 2, we have no problem with that. Option 3 would only take in consideration the east side of that street. And I noticed on the drawing for option number 3 that the signs are still on the west side of that street. So I would assume that's just a mistake. So we were opposed to option 1 or 2, but we're happy with option number 3. We have no problems. I know that during the winter, of course, it's a colder weather, so it didn't give us a good idea on how that social district was going to work, but I'm told there didn't seem to be any problems. From one of our owners is there all winter long, and she said she didn't see any problems. So I appreciate you letting me speak about this. And hopefully, if you do approve one of these, that it would be option 3. Otherwise, we're adamantly opposed to having people walking down our side of the street with drinks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Tolan. I was born and raised in South Haven, and I'm on the board of the First Hebrew Congregation. I was on the board of the First Hebrew Congregation and voted for the liquor license for Joe's, thinking it would be good for the community, a new business. Had I known the unintended consequences of that action, I never would have voted for it. Friday nights, it's the weekend, everybody's getting relaxed and ready to enjoy the weekend, and that's the time for our Sabbath. Our services have been disrupted mainly by noise because of the area bars. Our congregants have to put up with this noise throughout the service and are confronted with the noise as they leave the building. Monday mornings, there's trash in the garden and in the grounds, including paper cups, beer cans, and food containers. This is not going to improve by extending the social district. I can only foresee more unintended consequences. I'm here tonight because I care for South Haven. Last week, I spoke to a woman from Lawton. She told me how much she likes coming to South Haven during the week with her family. But, she said, she doesn't come during the weekend because there's too much drinking and fighting. I'd ask that you think hard about this proposal. Who's it going to help? Who's it going to hurt? What will it do to help the town? How will it change the reputation of South Haven? Who do we want to attract to South Haven? How's this going to affect the residents close to Broadway? What will the effects be of the unintended consequences? I'm hoping you'll not extend the social district at all onto Broadway. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Dana Hollinger, 1443 Clark Place, here in South Haven. So again, please do not extend the social district into the 200 block of Broadway, either side of the street. The proposal to extend the social district boundaries into the 200 block of Broadway and then to expand the months at which the social district would be operating would be harmful to the First Hebrew Congregation of South Haven. Like Remy said, our synagogue is located at 249 Broadway, corner of Church and Broadway. It's been our house of prayer and worship since 1929. Our Jewish Sabbath begins on Friday evening, concludes on Saturday evening, and our congregants should not have to encounter the public consumption of alcohol as they enter and leave our house of worship. And that's extremely likely because we have sidewalks on both Broadway and Church, and we immediately have 3 liquor serving establishments, one to the north, one to the south, and one to the east. Last summer, we experienced a lot of difficulty with amplified music from the patio across the street, and the music would permeate the sanctuary during our Friday evening worship services. It created distractions. It was easily heard as loud as the rabbi was speaking. We're concerned that public consumption of alcohol only literally a few steps from our front door will create yet another source of disruption or distraction during evening and afternoon prayers. Okay, I can't speak for other houses of worship in the city, but I doubt any one of them would want the city to facilitate and encourage the public consumption of alcohol adjacent to their front steps either. It's just a fact of geography that they tend to be more in the residential districts and more at the edge of the commercial district. It's also my understanding, and we talked a little bit about the early days of Joe's Crab Shack or whatever, Michigan control law regulations say a liquor license cannot be granted without consent if the requesting establishment is within 500 feet of a house of worship. I'd like the city to consider that and maybe make that part of the ordinance for social district. Don't establish a social district boundary without consent if it's within 500 feet of a house of worship. And I say this because while the liquor serving establishment is fixed on the ground, now it's customers with the liquor they bought in that establishment and the cups they purchased from that establishment to drink. They're out and about. They're on the sidewalks. They're within the 500 feet. So I really think this should go back and have the Planning Commission or Liquor Commission, whoever looks at this, to really try to think about a way, to make sure that houses of worship aren't disrupted during their services. So my request is please help us. Vote no with regards to extending the social district boundary into the 200 block of Broadway. Thank you for your consideration of my request.
Thank you.
Joe Wilkins, 811 Indiana Street. I was just sitting there, but last meeting, I clearly asked why I think it was Councilperson Mary brought up the question of extending, because Councilman Arnold stated that it was only going to be in the CBD area. So now this is on the agenda to extend it. That's what I was thinking. We were heading down that road, my previous discussion. I really don't have a dog in the fight other than I'm sitting there thinking this is so wrong on all levels. It just seems so wrong for a congregation to have to come fight for their right for peaceful worship. I'm a bishop. I'm a leader of a flock of people. And I can tell you on tonight, that would upset me very much to think that walking into our building, our church, our place of worship, that we have to encounter music, drinking. I know we're better than that. I know South Haven is better than that. I know this council is better than that. It's just outright insulting and wrong for a congregation to have to come to fight for their right for peaceful worship in 2024. Let's do the right thing. This should be really quick.
Thank you.
Mike Campbell, 216 Erie. Agenda item 11. New taxes should be levied only if necessary and after careful thought. South Haven property owners will pay $1.5 million or more over 5 years for the new recreational millage. I have questions that others have that should be answered before you vote on this proposal tonight. 1, the proponents asked for a 4-year levy, but the resolution as written says it will be 5 years. Why the extra year? 2, the proponents propose the taxes collected be allocated 1/3 to city parks, 1/3 to Shara, and 1/3 to recreational program. The resolution is silent about how the tax collected will be shared. How do we know how the funds will actually be allocated, and especially to the City Parks Department, to maintain what we already have, something the former mayor stressed in last September and December's city council meetings as essential? 3, you regularly delegate issues to boards and commissions for advice and recommendations. This ballot proposal is about recreation and taxes and funds intended for our city parks. But the Parks Commission has not been asked to weigh in on this, on the substance or timing of the measure. City Council, especially for a fiscal matter, why not? 4, the proponent's centerpiece appears to be the purchase of the Riverwoods property from the DNR. But the staff memo in the packet does not list such purchase as a priority for this measure. City Council, ask the proponents the source of funds that will be used to buy the Riverwoods property. 5, a set of bills making its way through the state legislature will provide a lucrative revenue stream to South Haven by extending the current occupancy tax to all STRs and creating a 6% excise tax on all STRs, of which 5% will return to the city. The House is expected to vote by end of May with bipartisan support. The extended occupancy tax revenue could, in Jen Sistrunk's words last Wednesday at the DDA, triple her budget. Yes, triple. I even went back to the recording I made of her presentation to be sure. The Visitor Bureau assessments in 2022 were $1.4 million. That means triple is equal to $4.2 million. Now put on top of that the revenue coming to the city from the new excise tax, which should easily raise more than $1 million. That's over $4 million of new cash coming into the city and the Visitors Bureau to spend on all kinds of projects, whatever you want. City Council, is it prudent for you to put forward a ballot measure today that would tax South Haven property owners when this state revenue windfall is just around the corner that could pay for all of this? If the state legislature somehow doesn't pass this legislation, then put the recreation millage measure on the municipal general election ballot in November 2025. You can do that just as the senior millage renewal vote happened in November 2021. Let's wait 1 year. Not to leave those groups in the cold, however, ask staff if a greater portion of the proposed budget for next year could actually be allocated to recreation while we wait to see what happens with the legislation with the new taxes. The budget isn't final yet, so you have time to discuss it and change it. Shara, Visitors Bureau, and private interest groups described on March 4th their ability to successfully raise funds from grants, the Visitor Bureau assessment revenue, and private giving. The Visitors Bureau is cash-rich and generously spends hundreds of thousands of dollars each year on development projects, most recently spending $400,000 on 304 Broadway without necessarily a purpose in mind. City Council, ask why this process can't continue as a source of funding for yet one more year with bigger contributions from the Visitors Bureau and the city, as well as actual private donations. Finally, one of your principal priorities for 24-25 is housing. Communities often require a housing millage to accomplish their housing goals. If you go with this proposal now, and you need a housing millage next year, do you think that the taxpayers will necessarily pass it? High taxes are already part of the problem of living in this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Fatima Tucker. I live at 1051 Phoenix Street. I wanted to address the Parks and Rec millage proposal. When I initially saw the list of millage goals, I thought, great, upgrade parks and rec facilities. But then I noticed that pickleball courts and dog park were listed above recreation for all ages. I'm sure it was an arbitrary decision to put recreation for all ages last on the list, but all ages stood out as second to dogs and pickleball. Today, I would like to shine a spotlight on recreation opportunities for all ages. Here in South Haven, right now, to my knowledge, South Haven offers very little in the way of free rec programming for local youth that extends year-round and exists outside of the school. We have plenty of opportunities when the weather is warm, but where do our students go during the colder months to socialize, play sports, or engage in creative opportunities? As a parent, I've spent thousands of dollars in gas traveling to Kalamazoo, Holland, and nearby communities for my children to engage in enrichment activities. Sorry, we've lost many parents and students to other communities simply because we do not offer adequate indoor programming. We lost many students and families. Children kind of drifted away, faded out of sports because they couldn't get to where the sports were happening and they couldn't afford the fees. There were many talented people who lost these opportunities simply because of distance and money. The quick solution, it seems, is to point to our school system to solve this problem, but our schools are already go above and beyond, and we need to stop expecting them to be the remedy for everything related to children. They should not be expected to extend their time and facilities further than they already do. I would like to see the city set its sights on building a new, more intentional vision for our all-ages population. I propose we come up with a longer-term plan that enables the community to engage in recreational activities year-round. I think the pickleball court and dog park can wait while we craft a vision and garner funding for an indoor recreation center. I know in the near past there have been large donation matches waiting in the wings for this type of facility. The focus needs to continue turning toward our younger population and year-round residents. Lake Arvista and the Senior Center have pickleball courts for those who want to play. We don't need more pickleball courts. And I'd like to note that there are many communities across the country trying to get rid of outdoor pickleball courts because of the noise pollution. They generate an above-average decibel for their surrounding neighbors. There's a New York Times article that discusses legal battles being fought right now because of these disturbances. If we truly want a town to attract visitors and a strong economy, we need to invest in healthy spaces for all ages, all seasons of the year. We live in a time when children are becoming less active, less social, and addicted to phones and video games. It is time to step toward giving our children space to move and interact outside of school. In regard to the walking and biking paths on the millage proposal, I'd like to know more about where they're going to be and which paths are going to be created. Right now, our Baseline Middle School needs a better path to Phoenix Street, actually Baseline and North Shore. Right now, the walking path from baseline ends at Blue Star, so on occasion, students can be seen walking down the shoulder of Blue Star Highway, even in the winter, to get to their Phoenix Street destination sidewalk. This is extremely dangerous, but for a child walking home in the cold, it is the most efficient path.
1 minute.
I propose that within the planning of paths, we include a new path between Phoenix and Baseline along Blue Star so that students can get to and from school by foot without risking their lives. I also think it will encourage more children walking and biking to school, which could alleviate our transportation demands. Thank you for your attention to these matters, and I'm grateful for all the improvements and progress the city has made and it continues to make.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Scott Reinert, 543 Quaker Street. I'm involved with the South Haven Area Recreation Authority, the Visitors Bureau, and I'm on the Parks Commission for the city as well. So I presented to you all, along with several others, back about 2 months ago now, at your workshop to talk about the recreational millage. I know I won't have time to address all the questions that were answered, but when it comes up to talk for you all to discuss the agenda, I'd be happy to come up and answer any questions. So what brings us here tonight is that we're kind of under a deadline now. We talked about this a couple of months ago, but in order for this ballot proposal to make the August ballot, it needs to be decided by next Tuesday, basically, and this is the last, obviously, council meeting before then. You have before you the recommended language. We recognize that that is pretty broad, and some other folks have addressed that as well. In talking to members of the community, I sense pretty broad support in general for recreation. However, the language as written, I think, needs to be, we need to be clear to folks exactly what we're going to spend and how we're going to spend it and how we're going to invest it on recreation. I think folks are looking for us to say it will be allocated 100% towards recreation. So what our thoughts would be is that if the council decides tonight to allow this to go on the August ballot, we would work with city staff and with the council over the next 4 weeks. And what we would propose is to come up with a specific recommendation that the council would use in the form of resolution, indicating the council's intent in terms of how those funds would be allocated. And so at that point, we can go back to voters, and I believe, again, you all are voting to allow us to put it on the ballot. It's our job to sell it, and we can't sell it in the form that it's at now. We've got to make sure that we clarify exactly how the resources are going to be spent, including kids programming, which I think is a key plank of this. So again, what I would recommend, what I would ask you to consider, allow this to be placed on the millage. Let us do the work, and let us come back to you with something that you can evaluate and support, hopefully, in the coming month, and it will show exactly how we intend these funds to be dispersed, and again, provide something that we can go back to the voters and communicate with, and they can make the decision whether or not. I know there's concerned about taxation and stuff, but I just feel like the momentum right now for recreation in South Haven is accelerating, and we can get so much done. And if we add to that, addressing the needs of the community and kids and our youth in our community, I just think it will do wonders for our community and for the future of the community as well. So again, when you all get to talk about this, I'd be happy to come back and answer any questions, but appreciate your time.
Thank you, Scott.
Hi, my name is Larry Fitch. I'm also a resident of Lighthouse Point. And as our president said, I'd like to see option 3 and not have the social district expanded to our sidewalk right in front of our building. We are not renters. There's eight of us there. A couple are full-time residents. We live in Kalamazoo, but we come to South Haven every weekend that we can have the time to do it. And besides that, I'd like to add that I had business to do back in the late 80s in South Haven and brought my wife along on some of those visits, and she fell in love with South Haven as I did. And we started looking for a place back in the 80s and finally were able to buy a place in in Lighthouse Point. in 2007. So I know you're going to bring up short-term rentals, and that kind of goes along with this expanded social district. I would just hate to see the character of this town changed radically by many short-term rentals and an expanded social district. I think South Haven is beautiful the way it is, and I think for that reason it attracts not only us, but a lot of people to this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ross Stein, 14149 73rd Street. I'm wearing my Shara hat tonight. I would encourage you to put the millage question on the ballot. We're trying to get more young people to move to the community. When people are moving to the community, there needs to be things for them to do. There needs to be things for their children to do. If this ballot passes, we will be able to increase our opportunities. Also, I know that at least 5 of you had the MTA magazine cover at your September meeting, that recreation is an economic boom. So if you get the economic boom, the recreation going will help the city thrive because it creates opportunity for children and families to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mind if I address everybody? My name is Brett Witkowski. I'm the director of the Road Commission.
Oh, I'm sorry, you have to talk to us.
Oh,
Plus,
I gotta talk to you.
We need
Okay.
you at the microphone, too.
Sorry about that.
That's fine. They'll hear you.
Okay, yeah, most people can, so it's not a problem. My name is Brett Witkowski, director of the Road Commission. Here to talk about our millage renewal that we have coming up in August. It's a millage renewal that's been on the ballot since 1978. What's interesting is the millage is also raised then money for the city of South Haven. So over the next 4 years, that would raise about 1.6 million for roads. And so that part is important. I think the biggest thing for our listeners out there, you know, cities and villages own their own roads under Act 51, where the Road Commission owns all the roads in the townships. Before I was director of the Road Commission, I was Berrien County Treasurer for over 20 years, retired from there. So I understand the fiscal constraints that we're all dealing with. One of the biggest challenges, I think, is maintaining the roads we have, whether in a city, village, or elsewhere in the county. We're very fortunate, only one of 31 counties in the state that have a millage like this. And then on top of that, of the 18 townships, 17 of those have a millage in addition to that. So the millage raises for us at the Road Commission about $2.7 million a year. The townships raise through their own millage about $4.8 million a year. So that helps us maintain what we can of the roads. Just give you an idea, if we're going to build a road from bottom up, it's a little over $1 million a mile. So as you can see, it doesn't take long to go through all that money. So we're hoping we can have the city of South Haven support. We do have a proposed resolution for you to consider at a later point. Not in this meeting, obviously, but as one comes up. And we do work with the cities and villages around the county. I see you have on your consent calendar to work with the Road Commission, do your PASER ratings. We have contracts with just about, I think we do with all cities and villages throughout Van Buren County to work with each other. And just to give you an idea of the amount of road miles we have to cover, when we plow snow, we are plowing from South Haven to Fort Lauderdale and back in one day. That's how many miles of roads that we have to maintain. So on a budget of $25 million a year, you can see why having a road millage like we have here since 1978 is very important. And it's because the headlights got pushed down, it's going to go down to 0.9721 for the next year. So glad to answer any questions. I do have pamphlets if I could leave them there, and I'll hang around the meeting if people have any questions about that. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Nope.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Jack Fitzer, 24.5 Grand Boulevard. You've all, over the past 2 or 3 years, you've all heard me address the need for the town to have some form of recreation program for all ages. I'm a strong proponent for this need and the value that it'll bring to the community overall. I'm the last person that you would expect to say to have a problem with any effort to do so. But in reading your packet on this, it's so vague, it's so limited in scope that I have a real problem with it. I think the language has to be direct. The language of this millage has to be closer to exact as to how this money is going to be spent. My hunch is that 5 years from now, there may be 2 of you sitting here, maybe 3. So whatever takes place in this meeting is not going to be remembered by the majority. And anything can be done with that money down the line based on what it appears to me at this point, an unknowledgeable person, it appears to me that it could be used for any source. The key to a good recreational program isn't even money, but you need money. It's the professional that you hire to accomplish the goals of your park commissioner, or park commission, or your board in developing a recreation program. That professional can't be Mike's cousin or down the street. It's got to be someone who has a background in this science, this art of recreation. Master's degrees are common in that business, in parks and recreation. So I think that, first of all, the language of the millage has to really nail down what you're going to use this money for. Schools don't have to be involved. Schools shouldn't be involved. This should be separate. This should be a program, a recreation program is something entirely different from the school system. It aids and abets, but it's different. So I just suggest that I'd like to see the millage pass, but it's going to be hard. There's a lot of people questioning it right now. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any other comments? Take your time.
Good evening, Jim Slattery, 116 Van Buren. I want to see the millage go through, but I can't go along with the verbiage that we have in here. It's very vague. It's wide open to do whatever you want to do with the funds. You're asking me to put out more money towards the millage, which I'm willing to do if I know where it's going. With the verbiage we have on this paper and in the document, we don't know where it's going. So if that can be cleared up and we can kind of point to where we're going to be spending this money, that'd be great. And that's the only thing I have. Like I said, I'm for it. I'd like to see it go through, but I can't see it in the current state. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
Dan Agnello, 964 Everett Parkway. I would like to talk about the closed meeting information. We had a closed meeting on February 13th, and I don't know if, as far as I know, there hasn't been any minutes that have been voted on or any outcome of that meeting. So I guess if anything does, it has to be, open to the public after the fact. Not the details of the meeting, but anything that's being voted on.
This is not a time for comments. He just gets to talk.
But it's agenda topics and.
Oh, you're right.
What's that?
You can't talk about things that aren't on the agenda.
Well, there's a closed meeting on the agenda.
A new closed meeting.
A new closed meeting.
Oh, is that where you're going? Sorry.
For
I mean,
today?
that's what since it's a closed meeting on the agenda, I think I can talk about
Okay.
a closed meeting. Okay, but anyway, I don't believe, that's been almost 3 months ago, I don't believe anything has transpired. But I'm glad that you added STR's discussion to the meeting, because, you know, moratorium was passed February 20th, and I have not seen a plan. We've had a priority for this thing for 2 years now, our second priority for this fiscal year, and nothing's happened. We started a moratorium only on business STRs, not on personal STRs. And half the people that were in the lottery for business STRs that were limited because of the cap, they got personal STRs. Now, so I think the number right now is the same as it was last year for personals, but that doesn't mean other people can't get them. So we've really not solved the problem and put in a true hard cap, just like they do on professional teams, okay? And there has to be a lot of revision. The STRs should be taken out of the ordinance. It's not a zoning item, it's a code of ordinance. That should be taken out completely out of the South Haven zoning ordinance, put in the code of ordinance, along with either personal STRs should be either eliminated or provided to residents only. You need to revise the whole thing. It's got to be redone, and I don't see any plan. And you only have 3 months left for the moratoriums. I don't see this being done. You have to completely redo or get rid of the zoning ordinance and then put everything in the code of ordinance. And the recodification, which has been going on for 18 months, they didn't even touch STRs. All they did is renumber the paragraphs 1743 and 1744. If they're going to go in the ordinance, it's going to be 2,000 numbers, whatever they are. So you need to do something. The residents want action, and there hasn't been any action. I sent all of you emails. I was upset about it, and I'm still upset, and I want to see something done. If you guys do something, then you won't have to hear me again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, go ahead.
Hi, I am Rosemary Fitzer. I live at 24.5 Grand Boulevard, and I just want to go back one more time to our recreation and our millage question, because I think it's, as some other people have said, it's very, very timely right now. I think everybody in the room is going to agree that we want more recreation for all ages. But this needs to get the millage. If we don't put this millage on the ballot this time, then you're putting this off for another whole year. It doesn't matter what you say, these same kids that aren't getting recreation won't. Same pickleball courts that aren't there won't be. I believe it should be put on the ballot, and that the people from all different parts of the community who want this and want it for various reasons, it's their job then, between now and then, to explain and to try to promote it. It's the job of the city to create the verbiage and explain to the satisfaction of all citizens what you're going to do with the money. But I believe that it should be put on the ballot now. The idea of waiting till putting something on until next November 25th, why? We've waited years and years and years. Why are we waiting? Why wouldn't we just put this on? If you don't come up with a good solution of how to do it, then the community just won't vote for it. But at least give us a chance to vote for it. And I think that it's also important to understand that when you're talking about something like pickleball courts, the average age in this country today of a pickleball player is 35. So this idea of buying this property, which is a wonderful opportunity for the town that's never going to come again, property right along the lake, all these things, an area where you can have recreation that's not in somebody's backyard. So all these things would be wonderful. So I think that people just need to understand that it's for all ages, the pickleball thing. There are courts at the senior center. Only seniors can use them. So it's not just seniors that want more outdoor pickleball courts, it's everybody. It's the 3,000 people that show up every Saturday in the summer to play at the high school. And yes, there's courts at the high school. A lot of people don't understand that those aren't pickleball courts. They're things that are drawn onto a tennis court with not the proper room, it's not a pickleball court. And so there's just lots of people that come to a community also. Ask the Visitors Bureau. We travel everywhere I go, except here. I can find a court that the community has built that lets me as a visitor play. Sometimes it's a mile fee, sometimes it's not. But I can go there. Doesn't matter how old I am, doesn't matter where I come from. And we really need that too. But I just think that I'm a little concerned about the timeliness of getting the question on the ballot and not waiting another year and a half to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? We will move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda items A through I.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Hasley,
Yes.
Onuki. Yes. Reeser,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes. Moving on to new business.
Yep.
So where's that? Yeah, okay, moving on to new business. The city council will be asked to consider approval of resolution 2024-18, a resolution setting a public hearing date for the fiscal year 2024 to 2025 budget to be held on May 20th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Kate?
Yep, Mayor, this is that time of year where, I'm not sure where there's a lot of feedback, but we set the public hearing, so nothing to be discussed tonight, but just to set that public hearing for the next city council meeting for May 20th at 7 p.m.
Okay. Is there a motion to pass the resolution?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-18, a resolution setting a public hearing for, public hearing date for the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget.
Second?
Any discussion?
I just would like to inquire for the budget and the information. I've been looking at budgets from other jurisdictions, municipalities. And for the transfers in and out in the budget, they actually say which funds it's going to and going from. And I haven't seen that in ours, and I didn't know if that might be something that could be added for the budget discussion.
I'd have to check with Michelle Argue, our finance director. I'm sure that she'll be present for that public hearing, should anyone have any questions. I do know it's a very in-depth document. There's a lot that's going in there. And many times, as you'll see in like your summaries, you're gonna see a bulk transfers in, transfers out, but each individual fund is gonna show those transfers out. They are not necessarily itemized, and if that's what you're asking for, that's something different, but each individual fund is gonna show those transfers in and transfers out.
It just would be more transparent to know exactly from which funds our money is going into and out of, so it is more itemized. I know they have not been done that way. I know every municipality is different, but I think that would be helpful for budgeting purposes in the future. And to the extent she might be able to add that.
Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? The motion passes. Next, number 10, the city council will be asked to consider approval of the following special event applications. A, special event application 2024-17, the Festival of Cars Cruisin' for Kylie 2024, to be held on June 8th from 5:30 to 4 p.m. in the Huron Street Pavilion and entire parking lot. B, special event application 2024-25, Barbecue 2024, to be held on Friday, August 9th, 2024, from 4 to 8 p.m. in the Huron Street Pavilion as part of the National Blueberry Festival event. Is there a motion to approve those special events?
I would move to approve special event application 2024-17, Festival of Cars, Cruisin' for Kylie 2024, as read by the mayor. Special event application 2024-25, Barbecue 2024, as read by the mayor.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The motion passes. Those are approved. Number 11, the City Council will be asked to approve Resolution 2024-19, a resolution approving and certifying a ballot proposal for a millage for the acquisition, maintenance, and improvement of parks and other recreational areas and the operation of recreational programming. Kate.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that has been brought to you after you've heard you've received presentations on it from the South Haven Area Rec Authority. Also, you've heard from a number of people in the community, many you've heard tonight. You've also received a number of emails today, as well as previously, in support of a recreation millage. The staff report that I put together here kind of highlights some of the details that were brought together at the master plan for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that did note we have $9 million of unfunded capital improvement projects just for the city's parks and recreation. That's a lot of numbers for a lot of different buildings. And I know that we've already approved a facility assessment for the fiscal year, the upcoming fiscal year, to understand the needs of our different parks. We know that there is outdated restrooms that, let's face it, restrooms cost a lot of money, and that's just for the restroom. We also know that there are a number of organizations that are trying to do recreation around this community, mostly for kids at this point, that are having a hard time finding volunteers, and they have asked the Rec Authority for assistance with how do we maintain our soccer program? How do we maintain our baseball and softball program? And so Shara reached out and said, hey, let's think about this. The township, South Haven Township, is one of the members of Shara and does have a millage and that they collect, that they do use for recreation. The South Haven Public Schools is also a member of Shara, and they also contribute to recreation as they have a number of their fields. But their fields do get beat up, and they do need some extra help. They also have to prioritize their student athletes first. And as you've heard by someone tonight, is that there aren't a lot of places for pickleballers, and pickleballers have actively come to this board for several years. They've come to the Shara board for several years looking for relief as to how do we get this recreation going. So knowing that we have a number of things going on, and let's also talk about what Shara has going on. Shara has utilized some very large gifts, but those gifts have been made over time. The major gift that Shara received was used to buy property up in Casco, and ultimately that was not the site that they needed to do a recreation complex. They ultimately sold that property and they bought the 14th Avenue. The first phase of the work that's done out there, and that's not all of the phases. If you've seen the master plan for Shara for that property, we're looking at a lot of zeros to get that done. Not the 9 million, it may be up there, I'm not entirely sure. The first phase where we were only able to do one, I think it's a U14 field, which separates out to 3 smaller fields and a driveway and some drainage, cost, I think, Shara between $600,000 and $800,000. That's for the first field. And we're talking about doing multiple fields out there in addition to pickleball, in addition to softball and baseball out there. So there's a multitude of different recreation needs in the community. So when I was brought this from Shara, and I worked with the city attorney based on some of the language that had already been proposed by Shara, the city attorney kind of came up with this proposed language, which I've heard both that it is vague, but that it doesn't say enough. So in my mind, I'm trying to figure out what does the language need to say for council, if council is persuaded by that argument. What does council need to say? Because I think it's very evident that recreation is needed in this community. It does need to be supported. And I did hear that a lot saying, you know, what can the city do more for its own city parks? City parks are part of the general fund. We do have to allocate those needs. That is part of the hard part that you all have to do in front of a budget. That's part of the reason why we take so many meetings and we have to walk through so many different things. And that is also why there are times when we have to say, you know, we really need to get that done, but unfortunately the money's not there. And a lot of times, like say with the beaches do have a funding mechanism. They have beach parking, and that takes some time to grow. I mean, beach parking is able to help fund the splash pad. It has helped fund the reconstruction of those 2 different park beaches over time, but those do take time to build up. So would a parks fund. So would a capital improvements fund. So this is something else to consider, council, as you're thinking about whether or not to put this question to the voters If there's some more, I guess, clarification that's needed, if there's an agreement that needs to be made later on to sort out how to allocate those funds, I'm happy to get that done. I do know that one thing that has been asked to me is, can we get this to the council, and can council put this to the voters? And I should note, and this has been brought up by Member Hosley, which is, how do we restrict how much of that millage funding is collected by some of the TIF districts? So I did ask the city attorney, and I did put that in the staff report, which says that we can go to both those boards and ask them, can they forego their capture? The one board that cannot forego is the Brownfield Authority, but the Downtown Development Authority and the LDFAs could forego their capture should council ask staff to go and make those arrangements if they'd like to put this on the ballot. I know I've given you a lot of information, and I know you've heard a lot of comments tonight, and I know we've gotten a lot of emails, so I'm here to answer any questions you may have on this topic.
Questions? Joe?
Yeah, the part that I'm a little confused about is the TIF incremental funding district. And it talks about it says, and I'm quoting, it could capture millage funds, Brownfield Development Authority, Downtown Authority, and the Local Development Finance Authority. That seems really vague, and I'm not sure what to make of that. So can you explain that?
Yes, I'm going to specifically go to the language in the resolution. So what I talked about with the city attorney is that because of the truth, because of the statutes that govern millages, you do have to put down any tax increment finance district that could claim that could take a portion of that millage that is captured and distributed to those districts. So the Downtown Development Authority is a tax increment district that is able to take a portion of taxes and then use it for their mandate. So this DDA is required to spend it on capital improvement. What you could do is you could go to those tax increment financing districts and you could say, instead of capturing that money, will you waive it and give it to the city for the recreational purpose that this was passed? We've done this already with the the DDA has already given us that kind of an agreement with the narcotics millage. So you can approach those two, and I have to say could, because by statute, if they can collect it, you have to disclose it in the millage language.
So just a follow-up question to that. Could we opt out on 2 of the 3? I don't think we can opt out in the Local Development Finance Authority, but can we opt out on the other 2?
You cannot opt out on the brownfield, but what you can do is you can go to, and you can direct, the city council can direct staff to go to the DDA and the LEFA and seek to have an agreement passed so that they would forego their millage, their capture on those millages.
So if this were my company, and I had to ask for permission after giving somebody the money to take some of it back, I don't think I would do it. What concerns me is not the intent of this program. I think it's great. I think we need it for our youth. I think we need it to attract all those hundreds of jobs that the power plant may create. We want those people to come to this community. What concerns me is Scott's statement tonight, which I thought he was being so honest, and I think I'm going to closely paraphrase him. We can't sell it now as written. What concerns me is it seems to me that we've rushed this a bit, and I know there's a deadline, but it's a bit vague. Doesn't seem like there's teeth in it where the money's going to go. I don't want to have to come to anyone after the fact and ask for some of that money back. It is the taxpayers' money. The taxpayers have a right to know where that money's gone. Most of these things on this list are great, but I want to know more specifically where that money's going before we approve it. That's my position right now.
And let me answer that. I know that when we did the narcotics millage agreement, that was after that millage had been, I believe, put on the ballot. So that was after council made that decision. So it's not out, you can do it either before, you can do it after. This one happens to be, we're here today because I believe the deadline is this Friday, correct, Megan? Next week. We're not gonna be, unfortunately, I don't think we're planning on meeting next week. But as for specific, where do you want things to go? I guess that's something to ask for council, is that if this millage were passed, does council want to sit down and then go through a capital improvement, I guess, itemization of where the money would go? Because ultimately, you would be deciding where that would go. Staff would put suggestions to you. I know that we've talked with the school about how does recreation programming get funded and who could fund that, because right now, they do the recreation programming, like I said, for their student athletes, but they don't do programming for AYSO or soccer or softball. They don't do that kind of programming, and that's where people have been asking for assistance. In addition, this has been written so that it's not just for students. One thing I keep hearing from a lot of people in town, in fact, I just heard it today at Safe Kids Bronson South Haven, is that people want to recreate with their kids. They don't have those opportunities. It's either the kids have this area to go to, the parents have nothing. So you're either 0 to 18, there's something for you either through the school or through some kind of nonprofit. There is nothing from 18 to 65, depending on when the senior center kicks in, and then you've got the senior center. There's a wide area where people are not able to have any kind of recreation program, and that's something that Shara had thought about, and that has come up in that master plan process. So I'm here to help facilitate what council would like to do. I just need the direction as to what you need to see from us to make this go.
And our school is losing students because of lack of recreation programs.
I have something to add or discuss.
Wendy?
Thank you. I am also very supportive of recreation for families and all adults. I think it's really important and something that we can improve on here. As someone who has had young kids here, we've utilized every park possible, done the bike trails, done all the things. I go to other towns and I see they have recreation centers or community centers that have so many options for enrichment. And to someone's point earlier, it's not then relying on the schools who are already stretched for their resources. I just feel like that would be important. And I know, Kate, you're saying we can have that conversation of what we want to see, but to me, I feel like we're pulling the cart before the horse, or however that saying goes, that we should have that looked at and discussed and itemized prior to approving this to go on the ballot. So for that reason, I feel like written as is, and to me, that's the only option. We are only able to approve what is in front of us. I think it's not ready yet.
So does after we vote tonight, will the language on the ballot change?
If there's a majority vote for this resolution, then the ballot language would not change. It would be sent to the county clerk. If there is no vote to approve this resolution tonight, I'm happy to go back to the city's attorney for the next ballot. I just would like to know what you need to see.
Right.
I'm a little confused as to what you need to see, so I just want to make sure that we're not spinning wheels, just giving you what you need to see.
So the language that was in our packet, that's been approved by our attorney?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay,
I would like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-19, a resolution approving the certifying the ballot proposal for the millage for acquisition, maintenance, and improvement of parks and other recreational areas, and the operation of recreational programming.
is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
Yes.
Mary?
Thank you. I, like others, do support recreation and do think it adds much to the community. Like others, I am concerned about the lack of clarity with the language. I appreciate the offer to work on a message to clarify how it will be spent, but my concern is staff is already stretched thin, and we have other priorities that I anticipate requiring the staff's time in the next month. And I also, out of caution and trying to be thorough, I went back into the 23-27 rec and park plan that goes not just for the city, but also the township. And it looked at a millage, and it gave 2025 as the date for the millage. It also looked at a full-time park director position by 2026. It gave, maintain parks and facilities. It had a lot in there, and this is, I appreciate the need to get things going, but this is, as Wendy said, the cart before the horse. It's we just spent much money and much time on updating our 23-27 park plan, and this is not aligning with it. Pickleball courts, yes, they can go up 14th Avenue. They were identified as Black River Park. The dog park was identified at Shout Park. It encouraged us to partner with the county for a bike trail. It encouraged us to identify new opportunities, but in existing spaces. And the millage doesn't seem like a lot, half a mil. But for people who are stretched thin and living paycheck to paycheck, it can be significant. And I was at a Women Who Cares meeting last week and heard from a mother of students where students cannot participate because their families would have to pay for different activities in the school, and they don't have the money for that. So if the millage passes, then they'll have that, and they'll have even less money to assist with their children. There was the question about, is this being used to purchase property? Our master plan, our own master plan, didn't discuss purchasing property. And I would like to better understand, why this hasn't gone before the Parks Commission also, just trying to make sure everyone's aligned. And more importantly, I would like to better understand in the resolution, the first two whereases with regard to the Headley rollback. And I would like to understand what is the ramification of those two paragraphs together. Does that affect, does the effect of those two, how will that affect the overall millages that we have? Because currently if this is added, we'll have almost 43 mills for our non-homestead properties. And if we did pass this, how does it affect our ability to request a millage for affordable housing? It's not clear from the staff report how the 15 mil limitation in the charter is affected by this and how that would tie our hands for subsequent actions that we would want to take. I'm just trying to take a long-term look at this as opposed to piecemeal. I would also like to understand why this is 4 years when it was, 5 years when it was initially proposed for 4. I appreciate that we can ask the LDFA and DDA to not take it, but as Councilman Reeser indicated, once they already get it, what's their inclination not to? And if my memory serves correct, the agenda packet in July 21, the July 19th agenda packet for their narcotics millage actually had an agreement from the DDA to waive that. So that was all done before the city council voted on the ballot language. And what is the percent that would take off the top of the millage if they didn't get it? What percent does the BRA get and the DDA get? It's just, we're asking our community, our taxpayers, to pay for this millage that is quite vague, and lacks clarity, and somebody may expect it to help their children, and it may not, and then they're going to have additional expenses. And especially in light of the current pending legislation in the state that could cause significant amounts of money to come to our community that would help with this very thing, that seems like that would be very beneficial. And again, I'm focusing on trying to be cautious with what we're asking of our community and our taxpayers. So, there were several questions in there. We can go through them. I think that, oh, and one last thing is, at the March meeting, it was represented that the township would also increase their millage. They're currently at a quarter mill, and this is not tied to each township and city's millage passing. It would be nice that if we are going to ante up, and when we ante up because of the tax base, we are paying 3 times as much as the township pays. So I can appreciate the township communications that we got, which were several, asking us to put this on the ballot. I would ask reciprocity that the township put theirs on the ballot and possibly even more than double it to a half a mil, so that the tax burden on our communities are more commensurate. I appreciate that the township has been paying a quarter mil since 2019, but we will double that in 1 year with this millage because of the tax base. So again, I am all for recreation, but I'm being cautious because of the tax burden on our community that is already tax burdened. We have people moving away because they cannot afford the tax, and this doesn't seem to be moving in the right direction. I would like to try to find other ways to fund this. The Visitors Bureau seems to have a lot of money. They're here to help our community, and I would like to see what partnerships we could do with them versus putting the burden on our community.
I just have a question. I've heard twice now tonight, a millage for housing, and I've never heard of that before.
It's pretty unusual. I only know of one community that's done it.
But we're not discussing that.
Correct, we are not, and I know it has been raised by people at the podium, and we have received communication with regard to it. And as I said, I would like to appreciate the effect of the first 2 whereases and how that ties our hands with the 15 mil limitation in our charter and the effect of overriding the Headley rollback, so that we have a clear understanding of what the actual tax implications on our community would be.
Mr. Stein, would you like to clarify anything? You can come to the microphone.
Clarification number 1, the township has had the rec millage for 8 years, not just 4 years. The big difference between the income is your taxable value is $500 million. The township's taxable value is $179 million. There's a big difference. There's no way that we can afford to go 1 mil to equal yours. You're also in the rec plan shows that the city has $9 million of unfunded work to be done. As proposed, we were talking about a third and a third, a third. A third of that would be addressed to take care of the city's assets, not the township's assets. So that's a correction that is in error.
Do you have any more questions for Mr. Stein?
It just depends on who can answer the other questions. Like my guess is Kate would probably answer most of them. And I do appreciate that the tax values are different, and I acknowledge that.
So there's no way that the township can afford to pay the same as the city unless we take back some of our 425 or 4 annexation that the township gave the city. If you give that back to us, we'll probably be closer to that, and then we'd be on par.
Thank you.
Did you have a question for Ross?
Joe, do you have a question?
Yeah, and I'm not sure this is for Ross or not, or Scott, or both of you, but My impression is that there's people up here that want to support it, and there's people in the room that want to support it.
Yep.
My impression also, and I'll speak for myself on this, you got to just tell me how I can be better assured that the money for recreation in effect is going to be paid to youth programs because they need it. Recreation for tourists and the residents. I don't want this to become, and please don't take offense, a slush fund that just gets spread all over the city and we don't really see something. This is asking residents to spend money out of their pocket, which they're already stretched. We all know that. Is there any way you, Scott, whoever, can sit down in a couple of days, if it's possible, and make it clear that's more acceptable to the council if we need that vote? And Kate, put it together, and I've seen it in the past, I believe, where you've called us in for 10 minutes to take a quick vote on something. I know you're looking at me funny, but is there a way of saving this and assuring us that the language will be more favorable towards what we think the money's going to, which is recreation?
If a millage is passed for recreation, the only thing that money can be used for is recreation. When you did your narcotics millage, that's the only thing that money can be used for is narcotics. In the township, we have a millage for roads. As Brett said earlier, our millage for roads is 1.47 mils. The only thing that money can be used for is for roads.
School bonds. School bonds, same thing. You can only use every
Right.
screw, every nail has to be used for the school. For the
And
school.
also in the township, we don't take out our, unlike the city, if you're funding for Shays, your funding for Shays comes out of your general fund. The funding for Shays in all three townships come from a millage, or a special assessment for South Haven Township, I believe a special assessment for Geneva. For Casco, they have a fire millage, and then they have to have a millage for ambulance. If it's a special millage solely for that purpose, that money can only be spent on that purpose. It has to be accounted for. That's the only thing that can be used for. Now, when I saw this, the language on it, the vagueness, if you will, because we had talked about, maybe a third, and a third. Let's say we are doing youth programs. Maybe a third of the youth programs, that money doesn't all need to be used for youth programs. So maybe that year, that extra money is going to go to help the city to get a grant application to do one of your $9 million projects. Maybe there'll be some extra money, so when Shara's going to try to get pickleball fields, another baseball field, softball fields, we could do that to help that funding. So I think that's probably why that's not a third, and a third, because I don't think you necessarily want it tied that specific.
Thanks.
Yeah, that is correct. And plus, I was told by Mr. Schooley that said, it may not have to be that much. So he would be one group that we work with for the programming, because they have an athletic department.
And the reason, and there was a comment question about being tied with the schools. The only reason Shara was looking to do that is to cut overhead. If the school already has somebody doing some programming, if we could go from making that a part-time position to a full-time position, that's saving overhead. Instead of paying a full person's salary, we're paying a part of a person's salary. That's why the school is some of it indirectly is going to go to the schools. None of it is going to go directly to the schools. It will be either spent by the city or it will be spent by Shara.
And lots of recreation already exists on the school facilities that
Right.
causes wear and tear, so the
Right.
school needs
And
help.
if Adam Versaput, the AD, was standing here, he'd say, go for it, because they only have 4 baseball fields. Right now, I happen to have a granddaughter playing softball. She's in first grade, and she's playing a 7:30 game. Her game last week got done at 8:45. So you're taking a 7-year-old kid after an athletic event, trying to get them settled down and get them into bed. And she's in not the Pee Wee League. The Pee Wee League is coach pitch, and it's back behind the girls' softball field. It's not even a field or an actual baseball field they're playing in. It's just a field with some bases put out there, and there they go. But the fields are used so much that they need a break. So that's why we're looking to put more baseball fields on the 14th Avenue property. The JYL wants to put some more money into things, but they have some ownership. A lot of the other communities that have junior baseball fields or junior baseball leagues have something that they can call their own. And if we build something at 14th Avenue, they can have more opportunity there. That's something they can call their own. That's something they can get behind.
I was just going to say, we talked about Shara, we talked about city parks, and then the recreational programming side. I think recreational programming is very easy to define. I think we could come up with a job description. We can come up with Kevin and Adam, kind of what that means and what that's going to cost. On the Shara side, I think we're laser focused on 3 parks. One is the Porter Legacy Dunes, which we're going to start construction on the first set of trails later this year, be open in May of 2025. We have plans to extend that trail all the way from Pilgrim Haven all the way down to Van Buren State Park over the next decade, but that'll take a while. But the first phase is proceeding, so we could envision a next phase of that park. The second is 14th Avenue, where we definitely have a need. We have space in the master plan for softball and baseball fields, as well as additional soccer fields. And then the third is Riverwoods. When the master plan for the city parks was put together, Riverwoods was never an idea. And so that's the reason it's not in the master plan. We will have to go back and update the master plan to reflect Riverwoods if that happens. But we've got some grand plans for Riverwoods. We think that it could be a tremendous asset for the community. It addresses the needs that were identified: dog park, pickleball courts, trails, all those kinds of things, and to be able to put back at least a section of the cover, the original Nichols covered bridge, which we have. We intend to put that back at that Riverwoods Park as well. So anyway, Shara is pretty well defined, and I think the recreational program is pretty well defined. So the question is, if there's money coming to the city, what would that be allocated for? Are there specific projects in that $9 million list that the city says, over the next 4 years with that money captured, we want to dedicate those funds for this? The other thing that I know in talking to Kate many times, the demands on the park department have increased with the parks that have been added and so forth. So clearly maintenance is part of that, but there could be capital projects as well. So back to your question, Joe, I think it'd be pretty easy to identify exactly what we would recommend. It's either maintenance or development work at the 3 Shara parks. And then the programming side, and then defining what we want to do with the city side, so.
Thanks.
Getting to the point about the Headley rollback and all that with this special millage, this is a special millage. The 15 mills is what the city can levy. You can vote on another 25 mills if you want to vote on it. That doesn't affect your 15 mills.
And your 15 mills is your operating, and it's set by charter, I believe by statute. And you can add additional mills, but there is this thing called rollback. So every year, there's only so much that can be assessed, and as your taxable value does go up, that decreases the amount that you can capture. So if you're allowed to, and we've seen this on our own road village, I think we're allowed to capture, 1.5, we're rolled back quite a bit. In fact, our operating millage could be 15. We are now rolled back to, I believe, 9.6.
But with this resolution, so the $0.5 would never be rolled back?
No.
Is that what that?
No, I believe the $0.5 is subject to rollback. Every millage is subject to rollback.
The whereas clause is not very clear then, because it's saying effectively override the Headley rollback.
Yeah, we're not, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm happy to get you clarification on that, but every millage, my understanding, is subject to rollback. What this does is it sets the level And I'm happy to get you clarification on that.
Okay. Yeah, if it's clarified that it would roll back, that would be appreciated.
And the other thing, Mary, if I could interject, the intent was for 4 years, so I'm not sure how that got
It
to
is for
5.
5 years, because you have to, the first year collection is 24, but you don't obviously collect in 24, you collect in 25.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's why it is set at 5 years, because that's pretty standard, my understanding. But you don't collect, so even though it says 24, your collection happens in 25. So the collection for year 28 will be in 29.
Russ, so I just remember, are you doing a ballot increase up to a $500,000 in the township?
We're doing a renewal of a $250,000, and that's for 4 years. We've already had it for 8 years. You've not had one. You've got $9 million of projects in the city. We don't have it in the township.
Okay. So I would request that it's clarified that the millage is mainly for city projects.
That is not correct. The $250,000 for the township goes to Shara. That's not used for township projects. But that's, when we did the first project at Pilgrim Haven, that project, I believe, was about $200-some thousand. We needed the local match. The city paid for the local match initially, and the next 4 years, the township used our millage to pay that back. So and then when we got the Porter property, we had to take a barn and a house down. The township paid for that. We use our $250,000 for Shara projects.
So you're not increasing it to a $500,000 like you had indicated earlier?
We'll see. Hey, maybe if you guys pass it and get one on, maybe we'll entertain that.
And that's why I had inquired about having this tied to a $500,000 increase to the township. I'm just, like I said, there's a lot of burden, or having it restricted such that it's, as everyone keeps saying, there's $9 million in capital improvements for the city, so maybe we do need all the money in the city.
George, and I have a comment.
George?
Just a comment, a couple comments. So, first of all, I've heard comments that this millage wordage is too general. When I read it, it says, for the purpose of acquiring, maintaining, and improving parks and other recreational areas, and to fund recreational programming. To me, that's pretty specific. This millage is going to go to recreation. I've gotten so many emails in support of recreation. I don't see what the issue is. We talk about if the city is not getting its fair share of the money, any money that goes to recreation, if it's in the county, if it's in the city, it's going to help everyone in the city and the county. So I am for this, and I'm frankly shocked that there's so much discussion against this.
Thank you.
And my comments are the same. I plan to vote yes in favor of this. The first time that Shar came and spoke to us was when the council met in Stanley Johnson, and since that date, all I've gotten is emails in favor of this rec millage. Now, when the language came out, I certainly heard Mr. Fitzer, Mr. Slattery, Mr. Campbell, Mike Neese wrote a well-thought-out email. Wendy and I reached out to some of our constituents over the weekend. Ms. Tucker expressed her concerns then and again tonight. But I also heard Mr. Stein and Mr. Reinert say, if they don't answer your questions, then vote no in August. So that's kind of my thought, is that, and I will too. If I feel that this has gone astray somehow, I'll vote no as well. For my part, our part as the council, then I would also ask the staff to please ask the TIF people that we can to waive their fees. That's my role. Other than that, passing this so that the voters can have a say, and I plan to vote yes, so that the voters can have the final say. Because as Mr. Reinert so eloquently said, if we don't sell it, then vote no. If he can't convince you, you can vote no.
And just a point, Mr. Reeser, you met with Mr. Stein and Brian Doucette probably back in December. or January?
And I've talked to them
Good.
since then, as late as a couple hours ago.
Great. So you're all set. You had time to think about this and get your questions answered.
And in my humble opinion, this discussion has been helpful for me, and I think maybe others on the board. So we're not just rubber stamping something. So I came in prepared to approve it. I started thinking after listening, maybe not, and listening more, I'm leaning the other way now. But that's the good part of having an open dialogue.
Right. Okay.
Letitia, have a comment?
Do you have a question or comment?
No.
Anything else?
I would just echo Council Arnold's comment that the LDFA and DDA, I mean, we've lost 2 months since this was initially presented in March, and I know they've met. And we have time before the August ballot. I think it would go a long way if residents knew that they were willing to waive their portion before they went to the ballot box.
Okay. Roll call, please.
You got it. Onuki,
No.
Reeser,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Hosley,
No.
Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on, we are at 13. The city council will be asked to review and adopt the city council priorities for fiscal year 2024 through 2025. Kate?
We're at 12.
Yep, we are.
Oh, where are we?
Social district, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. 12, the city council will be asked to take the following actions to amend the South Haven Social District. A, adopt a resolution 2024-20, a resolution amending the South Haven Social District. And B, introduce an ordinance to amend section 52-105 and section 58-83 of the South Haven Code of Ordinances with regard to the South Haven Social District. Griffin?
Good evening, everyone. Appreciate the chance to bring this back before you. As a friendly reminder, in April, the City Council voted to move forward with the following changes after hearing from several participating businesses. These changes are listed in your packet, and I won't go through them unless you'd like me to in more detail. But, you know, in short, with that direction, city staff went back to work and prepared the materials that are brought before you. We were also in touch with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission to confirm the process for amending the social district. So what you have before you this evening is really a few different things, but they break down really into two pieces. Piece one being Resolution 2024-20. This is a resolution to amend the social district. There are 3 map options for you all to consider. Ultimately, a map option needs to be selected and adopted this evening if you all are wanting to address these changes prior to the end of the social district on May 15th. If you don't, if you're not ready to make changes at this time, we can continue to have additional discussion, but we need to understand that the existing social district is scheduled to end on May 15. So if we don't adopt changes prior to that, it would end.
Griffin, can I ask you a question really quick?
Yes.
Is it an option, I mean, it must be an option for us to keep the existing social district map?
You could keep the existing map, yes.
Okay.
So
And just for clarification, sorry to interrupt you, but I did put the existing social district map up on the website, or up on the screen here for people to see.
Awesome, thank you.
So yes, theoretically, you can keep the existing map. We can talk through that in more detail if that's something you all would like to do. So if part one is to discuss a resolution amending the existing social district, that could include a map was something that was discussed. We also talked about hours of the day as well as the season itself, so we can discuss some possible changes to that. The second part that's brought before you all is to introduce some minor ordinance amendments. After speaking with the city attorney, these would be necessary to include Dykeman Park and the Huron Street Pavilion, which were two areas that were discussed in detail several weeks ago. These proposed ordinance cannot be adopted today, but they can be introduced and considered at a public meeting on May 20th, with the understanding that there's some timing delay with the end of the social district and those ordinance amendments. That's going to be part of us looking at making some changes here while the district is already operating. So another piece of that would be recognizing that if we make some changes this evening, there's going to be some timing delays in getting new design or new signage designed, ordered, and installed. So with all that being said, city staff will work to communicate with downtown businesses and residents to minimize confusion during that transition time. But we expect that would be minor, and we'd get those things in place as soon as possible. So I know there were several comments from members of the public today. I can talk about this probably in nauseam, so I'll go ahead and stop there and let City Council ask some questions or discuss where they'd like to go, and I'll jump in and provide some clarification as I can.
Joe?
Yeah, I can't support having the social district, even though it's a straight line, it looks really good, on Broadway down by Church. To have a social district right across the street from a place of worship where the synagogue is, we should protect their right to having services without having a district there. So my question to you is there a way we can have it not be on Broadway near Church, but have it on Broadway maybe down further or up much further, but definitely not by Church? Is there a way of carving around it? I know
Yes.
the whole reason of having a nice and new map is to make this easier for people so they know where they can and can't drink. And I think there was one.
Joe, I mean, exactly to that, and I'm sorry to jump in, but I can answer that right now. The answer is yes, I can carve this up however you all would like. But the feedback we received at the last meeting, as well as from the businesses, was they had concerns about the existing carved out map. So I can make this short. I can make the map whatever you all would like it to be. We just have to understand that there's going to be trade-offs in this process. We're either going to have a more squared-off district that's probably easier to understand, and at a certain point, we're also going to start carving stuff out to meet the requests that we're getting from the community, and recognizing that would create a more irregular shaped district that probably is going to create more confusion. Nothing's going to be perfect, and that's okay. That's just part of life. So if you all tell me where on that spectrum you all would like to be, we can try to make that happen. What I would add to that is, for this evening, we are probably more limited because I'm not going to be able to make kind of all of these different variations at this time. I mean, conceivably, if you could make a motion that's exactly what you all want, we could move forward, but that may be difficult in words when we're talking about, a map. So we have a few different options brought before you all. Conceivably, you could stay with the existing map you have now, which again, we could talk about some challenges of that. But again, in short, we can make the map whatever you want.
Mary?
For the amendments, if the map stayed the same, would we still need the amendments to the ordinances?
No.
That's what
If you're not going to add Huron Street, Dykeman Park and the Huron Street Pavilion, that doesn't change. What would be good to know, because the district does go to, I guess, end of May 15th, that if you are looking to extend it through the year, to have it January 1 to December 31st, we'll need to know that. So that is in the resolution. As long, additionally to I think the additional hours that were asked. And that was kind of the motion that Mr. Reeser made at the meeting, to extend those hours. So if we need to keep the original social district boundaries, you can see up there, that's one option. But if you're not going to extend into the park, then we do not need to introduce the ordinance.
At the previous meeting, there was discussion about having it go over, it was it was truncated on William Street. It doesn't cross over William Street in the three drafts. Is there any issue, because I think we were waiting to hear back from the HOA or what, the property owners. Is there a problem if that remains as is?
I don't believe we discussed William Street at the last city council meeting, so what's the question? Maybe I can help
Well, no,
clarify.
we had discussed that it was not extending to encompass like the river bottom. No, so like Harbor Brewing, South Haven Brewing, excuse me.
That may have been something you all discussed at the DDA meeting. That wasn't a conversation we had at the last city council meeting. I can tell you that in the existing map currently includes Old Harbor Village. That includes
Right.
a few different establishments. Because their property, their businesses do not immediately abut a commons area, they would need their HOA's permission to be able to participate. And a few of those businesses have been in touch with their HOA, and it doesn't sound like that's something that's going to move forward. So to avoid confusion, that area was taken out of these proposed drafts. If the HOA at some point in the future would like to reconsider, or those businesses are able to work with them and find out something, I mean, the map can always be amended again at some point in the future.
Well, and that's why I was asking, because I knew from the discussion that the HOA had to sign off on it, so that was going to be excised from the social district. I believe that was at city council. Regardless, is it a problem if it remains, if we supported the time extension and the date extension, but kept the same map? Is that an issue?
Well, so is it a problem is somewhat subjective. So, I mean, it's been a problem that some people have felt like the existing map's confusing. I also think
No,
we've
is
been
it-
able to operate under it for some time. So keeping it as is would be fine. We're just going to understand that those businesses highlighted right now likely aren't going to be able to apply to you to participate.
Sorry, my question wasn't clear. Is it an issue if that specific area where the HOA would have to sign off, is it an issue if that remains part of the social district? Because people could walk there with their cups, correct?
No, it would not be a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, how about if we cut out the Broadway section from Quaker, the north side of Quaker, down to William Street? Griffin?
I can make that happen and bring back a
Okay.
different map at a future meeting if that's what you all would like.
I would not want to see any of the social district along any part of Broadway based on what I've heard tonight and before tonight. So I don't know if the map, and my concern is that if it goes all the way along William Street down to Dykeman, will people actually stop or will they walk across the bridge?
Well, but the mayor just said take that out, that portion, not go that far to Dykeman.
So,
Not Williams or Broadway.
right, but then you have a dead end at Williams, so that's why I'm saying is that I think it would be cleaner if all of that was out. What might be a suggestion is to keep the map, and I would be supportive of extending the time and the time into the evening and the length of the season. But we come back with a map that's clear, and then everyone can look at it and ensure that even the little part, that's what I'm saying, between Quaker and Phoenix, even that part. So I think all of that Broadway should not be part of the district.
Okay, from here on to Williams?
From here on to Williams. or at least from at least from Phoenix to Williams.
George?
So I'm kind of thinking about what Councilmember Hosley is saying, and first of all, Griffin, I want to appreciate all the work you put into this. You know, I remember at the last meeting when we talked about this, I definitely didn't think of some of the things that have been brought up at this meeting, but the one thing that I think is a good idea in this particular situation is taking baby steps. So we have the social districts that's just been in place for basically kind of the off-season timeframe. And kind of in line with what Councilmember Hosley is saying, I would be inclined to keep the map the way it is for now and just extend the season, give that a little bit of run time, see how it goes, and then look to maybe expand the map later on. Now, I know that it's not what the DDA wanted. As Griffin said, it's not perfect, but I think anything we have before us right now is going to have some imperfections in it.
So keep the existing map the way it is and lengthen the time and season.
Yeah, and that way we don't need the resolution for the ordinance changes. And the rest of it can pretty much, I think, stay the same.
So if there is consensus among council that that is the direction you would want to go, my suggestion would be when considering Resolution 2024-20, in the motion, I would clarify that the city council designates the South Haven Social District and Commons area according to the existing South Haven Social District map.
Okay.
Because you are going to want to adopt the amended maintenance and management plan, because that's where it's going to address open daily, the hours of operations, so on and so forth.
May I make, do you want?
I was going to say, I certainly want to keep it moving. I'm in full support in what I've heard from my constituents of the time of year extension, the time of day extension. I would like to see, and I'm happy to work under the old map, but I would like to see an option where it would include Quaker all the way to Broadway, so that we're not excluding Thirsty Perch or Kitchen Tribes should they choose to be involved. I also think we should look at Dykeman Park and the Huron Street Pavilion. I think we should. But to keep it moving, I would stick with the old map.
And the map can be, oh, sorry.
You can have one more comment.
I was just going to say, the map can be amended very quickly through a resolution.
It can. I do want to make one comment there, though, is just recognize that every time we change the map or every time we change something, we're ordering or changing signs. So that may seem minor. And again, I can look particularly right now with us not changing the map of maybe just finding a way to overlay the existing signs with the sign with the time changes. I'm brainstorming right now, but just yes, theoretically, you all are absolutely right. You can pretty much change the map whenever you want, but let's at least recognize there are costs associated in kind of operational considerations every time we do make a change.
Are the signs on the west side of Kalamazoo a mistake?
On the proposed map?
No, the gentleman brought up, and he's wondering why there are social district signs on the west side of Kalamazoo.
I think it's on a proposed map. There are signs.
Oh, okay.
I
Was
don't
that
believe
it?
there are signs.
Okay.
Yeah, there
Thank
aren't
you.
signs presently there.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I feel like this is a good compromise.
I do too.
I support moving forward with what George said.
George, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-20 with the change of item 1, instead of option 1, 2, or 3, going with the existing social district map.
Second.
Any more discussion?
I just have one point of clarification. Do we need to decide whether it's 9 PM or 10 PM? Or did we talk about that?
Oh, yeah, good question.
In the, draft maintenance and management plan, amendments, I had put 10 PM. But if you all would like it to be 9 PM instead, that's
10.
fine.
10 was the original motion as well.
Okay. All in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
The motion passes. Moving on, the city council will be asked to review and adopt the city council priorities for fiscal year 2024 to 2025. Kate.
Thank you, Mayor. So as we talked at our last meeting, council set up 3 priorities to really direct our staff's focus. And as part of that exercise, when we went through with Mr. Vandenberg, we talked about making some action item steps, as well as maybe break down who's going to do what, and knowing that we're trying to make this kind of progress within 1 year, and also put some allocation dollars to those. So what staff has done is kind of looked at the 3 top priorities, first one being to amend and update the short-term rental ordinances, and I've written down a number of action steps that have to be taken, not just by city staff, city attorney, but also city council, planning commission, et cetera. We did estimate $10,000 into that. That has already been kind of placeholdered, if you will, in the general fund through the building department. The second priority was the city leadership will work to develop housing, including the Overton site and other changes needed to support housing. This one was a bit more of a kind of fleshed out item based on a number of comments that were made at the meeting. And so I've kind of itemized out what it would take and what it's going to look like with the redevelopment of the Overton site. We do have this zoning ordinance. I wrote update, but it's really the recodification progress that is currently at the Planning Commission. But again, that's an ongoing kind of step because we know there's a number of hearings that have to be taken. We have the master plan review, which should be written as the review rather than the update. We did a pretty big update of the master plan, so really we're doing like a review and small things to that. But then again, that might be a good time, as we've talked about before, of maybe making some zoning ordinance amendments or other items to that so that we can prepare ourselves for housing down the road. We also have a point on here that quite honestly, we've had to get a little creative to see what that meant to council, because we had a line item in the council priorities that said plan for housing at all price points, which is a pretty vague statement. So I had to work on what that would look like, and I've itemized that here, and was just looking for any input that council may have. And we've allocated different dollars in here, but nothing more than what has already been budgeted in the city council's plan, proposed budget. And thirdly, we have city leadership will work to explore the implementation of a beach safety improvements, such as the lifeguard program, and then walk through what those steps would be. So that's what I have down here, and I know it's I'm kind of rushing a little bit because we're at about 9:11, but that's what I had done based on the feedback and kind of guidance from our priority setting session.
Any questions, comments? On the amount of money budgeted for those items, is that firm? Because for housing, if the city wants to buy a house that's going through foreclosure, that money that you have listed is not enough?
Possibly not. We could, a budget is a plan, and like any time, plans sometimes have to be amended. This
Okay.
council will be seeing a budget amendment at our second meeting in June. If we do need to make other budget amendments, we can come to this council and make that.
Okay, thank you. George?
So, Kate, do you need a motion from us to adopt these priorities? Is that, or have we already done that, and this is, you're just updating us, kind of?
I guess I did write as an adoption, simply because it shows the action steps that that staff will be taking. That way you all can kind of see where staff's intending to go with these individual items. It's almost like a bit of a roadmap for us, so we're all kind of, if you pardon the expression, singing off the same choir book.
Well, I have a
Mary?
few questions. I would like to see some timelines to help us stay on the same road, moving in the same direction. And I don't, that might be something staff could come back with. For the STR ordinance amendments, because it does indicate, it does only provide for planning commission review, I want to avoid any misunderstandings that it's just the zoning ordinance amendments. I think a general trend is going from zoning to the code of ordinances, the regulatory ordinances for short-term rental management. So I would like that clarified, that we're looking at not just zoning, but code of ordinance amendments. And those do not go to the planning commission for review.
Yeah, it was pretty vague where it says review by planning commission. It doesn't say, but planning commission is going to be reviewing the zoning. And I guess I can get into the weeds on that, but really I was trying to explain, all this is intended to be done in 1 year. If it was going to be expanding beyond 1 year, that was not intended to be included there. This is really a 1-year kind of a program.
Right, I understand that.
As for STR amendments, we're currently in our fiscal year, and we are beating feet to, pardon the expression, to get a lot of things done. We know that we're under the deadline with the moratorium. As you know, as you can tell, this starts July 1, so the idea is that hopefully we have something that we can send out to the planning commission in a short amount of time. That's if we do not get that to them sooner than that.
Okay, yes, because I know the July meeting is July 11th for the planning commission, so that really puts us in, between a rock and a hard place with then coming back to us and us having to set a meeting. The soonest we could do it, assuming everything went on schedule, would be August 19th, which would be the 6-month deadline.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to, I would hesitate to put dates in here because quite honestly, there's so many moving parts that ultimately council has to be the one that sends a zoning ordinance to planning commission.
Okay.
Excuse me, you've had 2 comments.
No, I
It's
think
limited.
By what?
Robert's Rules of Order.
No, we have an agenda item and we should have 10 minutes.
It's 2 comments.
2 comments.
What, Robert's
Jeff.
rules?
I don't.
Were you going to comment?
No, I was just agreeing it's 2 comments.
Okay.
Pull up the point of order. Where's the Robert's rules that says 2 comments?
All right, let's go ahead and look that up.
I read it.
It was in our training.
It was in our training that we had.
I don't remember that.
Okay, any more?
I don't know, like, I feel like Mary was still halfway through her point, so I don't think it's.
I know, but she had 2 comments.
I don't really know what that means. I think the second comment was ongoing.
Okay.
Like 1. I would just let her finish.
Yeah, this is important, so if we can let her finish, I would also support
Finish your
that.
comment.
For the Overton site, I would include the city council review and approve the RFP. It only has us reviewing the results. And for the beach safety, I would add an item for decide whether, between the first and second bullet, circle, decide whether to issue an RFP for lifeguard experts to advise the city regarding the best way to implement a lifeguard program. And in all the square bullets, it would say city staff and/or lifeguard experts. So it's not just the city staff involved with the lifeguard program.
And I just want to clarify, this is just coming from 1 city council member. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the priorities?
I didn't even say anything yet, though.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. The only thing that I saw that was missing off the top of my head for planning for housing at all price points was, I know Ryan Kilpatrick had talked about having designs that are pre-approved to kind of speed up the process for developers. So I feel like that would be something worth looking at.
What would you, I'm sorry, so is that, just so I'm looking at this with my staff, are you asking me if Ryan Kilpatrick has those designs? Or are you asking staff to implement those as part of a zoning ordinance or part of a master plan? What does that mean?
I'm asking under the priorities for the action plans to have that as a bullet point where we can have pre-approved design plans to speed up development and reduce the cost for them.
So maybe that's already, could be fleshed out and explore additional zoning ordinance amendments?
I just didn't know that it needed to be in a zoning ordinance amendment, but
Okay.
have pre-approved plans. I'm not sure.
This action is a request to adopt the priorities.
Right. So I feel like this is our time to talk about the action items that are under the priorities. That was my understanding.
Actually, we could do that at a workshop.
I think that would be great.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the city council priorities for fiscal year 2024 to 2025?
I move to adopt the priorities for the fiscal year 2024, 2025.
Second?
Any more discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
Kate, did we decide that there was going to be some type of timeline I think someone suggested that. Did we say we were going to have some type of timeline just to make sure like we're meeting some type of goal at a certain amount of time? Or?
I haven't broken these out. Beg your pardon. I haven't broken these out more than beyond a year because many of these are kind of in line. And I apologize that I did have in there that City Council does review and approve the request for proposal. So all these have to kind of happen first, kind of in line as they're going down. All of these are intended to be performed or executed in the next 1 year. So I don't have, anything saying that the draft for RFP will occur in 3 months or 6 months, but it, as well as select a preferred developer team and negotiate a due diligence agreement, are all in the same year. So this is all work that we're intending to get done in this year.
Second question.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just thinking, would it make it easier for the community to feel like we're making some progress if maybe we say by the end of the year, we hope to have this done or something done? Or
I can tell you that it is my hope that we are making significant progress on this, and it is also my hope that based on what we've talked about with Mr. Vandenberg, that we'd be giving you 3-month updates on all of these progresses, all these projects.
You said 3 months?
3 months.
Quarterly? So quarterly.
Quarterly,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? The motion passes. Next, 13A, a brief discussion on short-term rentals. I'm allotting 5 minutes for this. And Megan, will you please time it? 5 minutes.
I can say I wasn't prepared, so I have no comments.
So are we just waiting for someone to start talking?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like, I think we need to discuss, where we're at. Kate, if you don't mind, I think we kind of had a little discussion. I know we're down to 4 minutes.
Yep.
Can you quickly, kind of let us know? So the community, the people need to know, they deserve to know
Right,
where
so
we're at.
City Council has given direction to city staff and the city's attorney as to what they'd like to see with proposed amendments. City attorney has been working on those drafts. City staff are going to be reviewing said amendments and then conferring with the city attorney. The city attorney intends to, and I wrote this down specifically, I have been in touch with him as of today. The city attorney knows the time pressure as well as the pressure of that this council is receiving on the community, knowing that this is a major item. It is not only our top priority for next year, but this is something we want to get done. That the city attorney intends to get something intends to get something out shortly. So they have been made aware that the council wants to see some action. There is movement, there is drafting that is occurring, and there is review. So council should be seeing something shortly, coming to them about short-term rentals. And I do want to make sure that I have heard some people saying, well, when are we going to be extending the moratorium? The moratorium has not even hit halfway through. So the moratorium ends August 19th. The idea would be to have something to the city council for their review, of course, making sure that we're on the same page if this is what council wants it to look like. And we can go back to the I wouldn't say back to the drawing board, but we can amend that to say if there's things that we are not covering or should be covered or included. And then that would be referred to the appropriate reviewing agencies, such as the Planning Commission, if that's what the statute provides.
Also, I think there's been an increase in personal short-term rental certificates. That was another question from the community. And they were kind of concerned about that. Should they be concerned, or should we be trying to do something different to, remedy that, since that is it's the elephant in our city?
Sure.
Short-term rental.
I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but I can get those out to council and see where we're at and see if that's something that you all would like to look at. But right now, I don't have definitive numbers. I looked at I've talked with a few staff members and looked at a few things, but I am by no means the expert, so I don't want to give you bad information. I don't want to give you incomplete information. So I'm happy to get that to council this week.
Well, I think you said it increased by 9.
Again, that was my guesstimate, and I do want to make sure that information is correct, but that was my initial impression, but I do want to make sure that is correct. So that'll be my first thing to do tomorrow, is to have staff kind of pull some numbers for us.
And shortly is by our next council meeting, right?
Shortly was not defined, but I have impressed upon them that this is something that council wants to see in the short term.
Is that 1 month, 6 weeks? Do we have any idea?
I did not define shortly, just as I just
Exactly.
previously said. But like I said, I'm intending to bring this back to them. I'm sure they're going to be watching this tonight or tomorrow, and I understand that this is something that council wants to see in short order.
Thank you.
Joe.
Yeah. Letitia brought up timing, and I'd like to add to that. It's not as important to have an exact date.
1 minute.
But, pardon me?
1 minute left.
But we should have some indication for the residents when they can expect something back from our lawyer. It's been a month since our closed session, and we're getting nothing yet. And the lawyer works for us, we don't work for them. And I think some pressure should be put on them to come back to us with some document that we can review.
I'm happy to share that with them.
Thank you.
And for the record, can you guys kind of let us know when new things are coming up, new Robert orders, rules, so we'll know beforehand?
I do know that, I know it's not necessarily on topic, but I do know the ad hoc committee has been meeting, and they have a meeting next week.
Well, I was just kind of thrown off by the 5 minutes, and I didn't know it was 5 minutes when
If I have seen a pattern of blindsiding by adding things to the agenda without letting the mayor or the city staff know. And as Mary has said, more transparency is important. So when things are on the agenda, you get more time.
I'd just like to make a correction. Kate, I know I talked to you this evening, so I don't think she was blindsided.
I wasn't, I don't want to throw my hat in the ring.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised that it was made an agenda item. I was planning on addressing some of this in my comments, but.
Thank you.
And this has been brought up in our training to please let the mayor know when you want things added to the agenda. And of course, let the city staff and our city manager know so they're prepared to answer questions. Okay, moving on. Number 14, public comment. Citizens in the audience will be heard on items not on the agenda. You have up to 5 minutes.
Heather Welsh Johnson, 931 South Haven Place. I just want to say regarding what was just discussed about the 5 minutes and the transparency and all that good stuff, there's very clearly some things that are happening behind the scenes with regarding the lifeguard situation and a lot of other topics too. So it's not just one-sided that you're seeing Mary, and the only way to get some of these things put on the agenda is for Mary to make a motion during the council meetings.
No.
We've seen it a number of times. We have actually seen it a number of times. They have asked her, they have asked Kate to put it on the agenda previous to the city council meeting. The Friday agenda comes out, and it's coming out late, so everybody's getting it at 5 p.m. Everybody has a weekend, and then Monday, we have a city council meeting. Nobody is having any transparency. So you want to talk about transparency, put that agenda out with people to give people time. You're not doing that. Sorry.
Mike Campbell, 216 Erie Street. I was going to make two comments, but I'll limit it to one. One of the comments was actually going to be a compliment to you, Mayor, for the way you run meetings. Unfortunately, too close but no cigar tonight. You were disrespectful to at least 3 of the members of the council. So maybe next time or sometime in June, I can come up and say that to you.
Not sure how these work. Good evening, Bob Metzen, 130 Van Buren Street. I recently joined a task force that would like to work with the city on the working affordable housing issue. There's 10 to 12 of us. Most of the people, if I named them, you'd know who they were. They're people who are committed to the success of the city. So we were glad as a group to see that's a priority of the city. We do understand how complex this type of project is. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. So what we would like to do is offer our help. In January or February, we had a discussion during the STR meetings, or the council did, that it'd be nice to get support from people in the community. There are many people with business backgrounds, legal backgrounds, other things that can help. The staff and the council are truly overworked. Personally, I'm interested. I found the whole thing fascinating. Over the last month or so, I've met with developers and Habitat for Humanity. I was at a lunch with a couple of you and then talked to Don Wilkinson after that. Our group has been meeting and have some really good ideas. I mean, following up on what happened with Overton, I think now would be a good time. My ideas and thoughts are fresh, you know, to maybe engage us to help out. So we need your help. I don't know how the process is. You know, again, January, February, oh, it's a great idea. We get citizens to help. So maybe, you know, Kate or Griffin meet with our group, understand the ideas, thoughts we have. Some may be good, some may be bad. But they could also direct us. We can help you. We can lighten the load. We can do some of the lifting at the city's direction. But we want to help to try and get this done. We just want to make sure that everything's covered. We can communicate with the community, get feedback. There's a lot of things we can do. I'm not a lawyer, but as I've told people, I've done $3 billion of financing. My days looked at plenty of legal contracts. I'd love to look at TIF agreements, other things. I'd love to get involved in that to try and make this happen. And I know the other 10 people on the committee would also. But I don't know what the process is. We're putting it out there for you. We want to help. So I would suggest maybe, you know, like I said, Kate or Griffin meet with us, see that we're for real, and maybe we can help you all out. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Dana Hollinger again, 1443 Clark Place. So this is for items not on the agenda, but I do want to sneak in a thank you. So this is an update. A few weeks ago, First Year Congregation came to City Council for approval to make, I'll call it a restoration of the entrance to our cemetery. And I just want to say thank you, the park staff, the folks in the city that handle the water, and the folks in the city that handle streets. It's been great to work with. We've got the water surface moved, we got the curb poured, we got the new drive poured, the masons got the second pillar in, the fence guy's working on making our fence, so it's going well. And like we always say in South Haven, weather permitting, we hope to have this thing done maybe by Memorial Day. But again, I just want to shout out and a thank you for the parks, the street folks, and the water department who all worked together to actually make this easier than we thought it was going to be at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Agnello, 964 Everett Parkway. I just want to make one comment about the STR schedule.
Excuse me? This is for comments that are not on the agenda.
Okay, I'll just send an email then.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Lisa Croupiers, 561 Indiana. I had not intended to speak tonight, but what I am observing is very troubling. I see, first of all, Councilwoman Husley is not the only one that has brought things up that have not been on, and asked them to be on the agenda. She is not the only one. It's also been done by Councilman Reeser, tonight by Councilman Wilkins. I just feel it's, from what I understand, there is communication to the mayor and to the city manager, and those things are ignored. So I think it's a good workaround to bring these things up. It is transparency, as Councilman Wilkins said. This is, the people want to know. We're all wondering. Everything's kind of happening, and I am not even one of the persons that has contacted her. And she obviously, as the other council people say, are being bombarded with requests and information. I think that the council, especially the mayor, should be supportive and embrace her council, because we have to work together. It does not reflect well at all to us residents to have this kind of nonsense going on. And I also want to add that I am disappointed that we are not waiting to see what happens at the state level with the funding that could possibly go through. We're adding one more thing. We're making something else another priority that is going to take away from housing, that is going to take away from short-term rentals, because now we're going to be lobbied for this recreation situation. And the vagueness,
That was, excuse me.
Thank you. I am done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Wilkins, 811, can you stop that for a second? I didn't even get, yeah, give me a chance. All right. I want to quickly encourage and Mary to continue doing what she's doing. I want to remind the other three why they were voted in.